We have to come to training, yeah.
Yeah, in my case, they up there. No, yes, no.
Right.
I get nervous.
Wow.
So
Yeah, he is great.
Hello,
Hello, Rabbi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
All right.
I don't have any picture except my own father. So my expectation, yeah, I think if nobody else sends in a picture of a veteran in their family, my dad
excellent.
should go into there by himself.
There we
Actually,
go.
he's with Carl Ryan.
We've got a remote student.
Oh.
What's that mean? Oh, we do? Oh.
Yes. Although I'm getting messages that my internet connection is unstable. So,
So
all right. David, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me? I can hear you. You can't hear me. You hearing me?
I hear you, but I hear you.
You hear me. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We all hear.
We all can hear you.
Just to be.
All right. Very good. All right. Hopefully, I don't know what happened to you there. Hopefully, you'll be able to stay with us and be able to hear us. And hopefully, those who are not with us and going to watch the recording, this technology is going to work. There we go. Hopefully, it won't be too distracting. Okay. I'm back again. All right. So, welcome, everybody. I meant to bring the name tags down, and I forgot. So, we're going to go around. We're going to do the introductions because we have some new.
It looks like it's streaming problems.
Yeah, I'm getting a message that the internet connection is unstable, and so we may come off and on, so just hang in there with us. That's going to be the way it's going to be. All right.
We're hanging.
You're hanging. Excellent. So we'll do the introductions. I'm going to pass around the roster. Again, one more time, double check, make sure that the information on there is correct for you. And if not on there, I have these participant informations for you to fill out. So I'll pass these around behind the roster. So if you're not on the roster, then take one of those. Who did not get materials last time? Okay, so there's one. Who else? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Send it down that way.
I don't know. I got it. I didn't get it.
Okay.
No, they weren't enough.
There weren't enough.
No, but I mean,
But these weren't in yet, so take one of those. Okay. All right. Everybody else has a full packet. All right. Excellent. The other thing that I have for those of you who were not here last time, let me find you. I have. I would love a glass of water. Thank you. I have 3 sets of the materials that were given out last time. I think you got all those already, Marjorie.
that's what you get.
Okay. And I have a few copies of the blessing for Torah study. And if you didn't bring or lost or whatever, and need again, the blessing for study. All right, so let's do the introductions. I'm Michael Torp. I'm the rabbi here at Temple Beth-El.
Arlene Murphy.
Marjorie Friedman.
June Church.
Jim Rosenbluth.
Leslie Green.
Amanda Shades.
Terry Hartman Futnick.
Al Footnick. Great. And we got Lois and David Jones into the study of Torah. So let's say the bracha, let's say the blessing together about studying Torah and the study of kind of all things Jewish all together. We say Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kidshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu La'asok B'divrei Torah, which means blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who makes our lives holy with mitzvot and commands us to engage or to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. So you always remember the context of what we're in. All right, we're going to start with a video. David and Lois, and for others online, we're going to figure out a way to put up the links. David, I did email you the links, the two of you, to these videos. So you might want to, on some computer or another computer, log into YouTube and do that. I'm going to be very hopeful that this is going to work for us tonight. And I'm not going to show you the wrong one. They're short, but they don't show up on the video screen. All right.
We all know that a great disparity currently exists between rich and poor. One way to understand this disparity is to think of the Earth as a community of 100 people.
Turn that down.
All right. So 100 people. All right. What surprised you in the information that you just saw there? Leslie?
Who came up with the numbers and how do they know that? I mean, that seems like a lot.
What seems like a lot?
It's huge.
Uh-huh.
And I know, we see things
Right.
happening around us.
Do you think that the numbers were too generous to the negative or the positive?
I think that it would be, this seems 83% are not.
Cannot count on having food in their refrigerator, clothing on their bodies, and shelter to live in.
I find that incredible. That's pretty high.
One out of those three. You're missing one out of those three. You fall into the 83%. And you find that high. Yeah.
I found the illiteracy rate extremely low. I thought it would be much higher.
Uh-huh.
15% seems very low to me.
Uh-huh.
The rest seemed what I expected.
What you expected. Okay.
Well, and if you visited India or Mexico or Saudi Arabia, running plumbing is not the norm there. I mean, they're called third world nations, and it's tragic.
Right. We now call them developing countries.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Okay.
We've done away with
They
the
love
first
that.
world, second world, third world nomenclature, and we now call them developing countries
Why are they developing?
because there's the
There's
potential.
hope.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
They are developing some of that infrastructure, some of those resources, some of the things that we've come to take for granted.
Okay.
So why is it that people in the world, whether or not the numbers are exactly accurate or not, okay, and we don't need to kind of debate those specifics, right? The numbers come from, I'm pretty sure they came from American Jewish World Service and from some of the other organizations that are working on world poverty and development around the world. So why do some people in the world not have enough food or water or access to education? Why do some people have it and some people don't?
Accident of birth.
An accident of birth. Okay. So that explains why you're here and not there. Right.
From my own observations, and I lived in Africa 4 years as a child. The status of women in developed countries is much higher than it is over there, where they're literally sold into marriage
Mm-hmm.
and are expected to birth out as many babies as they possibly can, because the tribe protects the family unit.
So you think that the status of women is a significant contributing factor to why some countries have less of food, shelter, education?
Some countries have more natural resources than
Right.
other countries.
Some countries have more natural resources.
They know how to get it out,
Africa is loaded with natural resources.
but they don't know how to get it out.
It's not that it's
a lot of places.
Africa is loaded with natural resources, but one of the problems there is corruption at the very top, and like diamonds, and there's all sorts. It's just a gorgeous continent, but it's I think it's a vicious cycle of too good large constant poverty, because they have such large families, they can't feed them. Those kids marry very young, 13, 14, and they start their families. The ones that survive, when I was there, only 60% of the children survived to age 5.
So, how did the video make you feel? I mean, there are a lot of responses to these questions, and we're not the experts, you know, and thankfully not tasked with the job of figuring out all these things. But I think there are a lot of different contributing factors. But how did the video make you feel?
On some level. There are a lot of happy people there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen joy and smiles and
Right.
graciousness and warmth that, you know, you would, to them it isn't about maybe plumbing. You know, not having food is a whole different thing, but some of the
Sure.
things on there were.
Okay. So again, the question was how. So Jim said feels blessed, feels badly that people live in these kinds of circumstances. How else did it make you feel? I'm trying to get to the feeling part. Get out of our heads into our hearts.
It makes me feel like, what can I do, given the skills that I have, to help this situation?
Okay.
I think it made us
So motivation to act. Okay.
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Okay. Yep.
Or a feeling of helplessness, or like what it's the problem is so vast.
Mm-hmm.
What difference can it make?
I have more of a feeling of resignation than anything else. I don't, I think it's great that it makes people see that they can and want to do something, but I'm at a different place. I just think it's something that's certainly not going to be solved in my lifetime. And I don't know that, I think the world's efforts are so minuscule that I just don't see an impact from that 17% that are in the 83%.
Okay. So, yeah, Leslie.
How does Christian missionaries go to, I'm saying Christian because that's all I've seen really. They go to various places and get clean water, people, shelter.
Sure.
I mean, you don't know how much of that's propaganda for a little bit of space or how much they're really doing, but it seems like they're going out to the world to help people. And I don't think the Jews do that.
Ah, okay. So we don't do it as missionaries, right? We don't do it with well, some missionaries do it as proselytizing. Some churches go on missions, which are missions of, you know, mercy, help, support. It's just part of what they do as a church community or as a church organization to go to developing countries and to try and make whatever contribution they can. but Jews do it as well. We do it through a number of different ways. Our own movement has programs, especially for youth, for teenagers, and for some college-age programs that provide the opportunity to go to for a week, a couple weeks to a developing country to participate in an effort that's going to help develop that country. And the American Jewish World Service is a very substantial, long-standing Jewish organization that works on development issues around the world and engages Jews with some of this work. That's just the start of it.
Isn't that part of our fabric, tikkun olam? Are we supposed to help repair the world?
Well, yeah. So what does the video have to do with tzedakah? I think is kind of coming out right now. Right, our topic for tonight is tzedakah and philanthropy. That's what this second unit is about. And there is this sense of what can I do? How can I make a difference? What are the 17% of the world doing, and what's my role in that? And is that part of what we understand when we talk about tzedakah? The video illustrates the reality that people around the world are not equal. One of these and pass it down. Some have access to the resources they need to live healthy and safe lives, and others do not. I think that in some ways, Jim was a prophet in his own time, because he kind of already answered what the answer to what we're about to look at. Yeah. Now she just says you're not making a profit. So I love this cartoon when I saw it. This Wheel of Fortune cartoon.
That's just what Marjorie said.
It's just what Marjorie said. That's right. Right. So so take a look at the cartoon. Take a look at the what's on the wheel there. All right. We got the two storks on the left. All right. One's got the baby ready to be delivered. All right. And they're going to spin the Wheel of Fortune to see where does this baby get dropped off. Okay. And look at what the choices are. All right. Middle class with Starbucks. Middle class, no Starbucks. Wealth, I guess those are the three positive sections on the Wheel of Fortune. Right? And depending on your perspective, I suppose, about Starbucks versus no Starbucks, right?
Take no Starbucks.
Okay. But then look at the rest of them: poverty, abject poverty, poverty and AIDS, poverty and famine, poverty and war, or poverty with AIDS, famine, and war. So what does the cartoon represent? What's the wheel represent?
87% of the other worlds.
Okay. So this is the 83% versus the 17%, or 87% versus 13%. I forget which one it was. I think it was 83 and 17. Right? All right. So this is like the 87, the 83%. All right, in the poverty wedges.
Only three wedges that are
Positive.
Mm-hmm. So the wheel kind of reflects, in one way, the reality that the 100 people video was trying to explain to us about what's the situation around the world. Yeah.
I think it also reflects that it's not the individual who causes his situation,
Mm-hmm.
because we frequently blame the individual.
Nice.
It's because they don't work, they're lazy, they're whatever. But obviously,
That's
Sure.
true.
I mean, the 5 elementary schools in Pinellas County are failing because the parents aren't engaged enough and don't care enough, and it's it can't be the school's fault. It can't be the school system isn't doing enough, right?
Well, that part is true, but also, as you were saying, in Africa, it's the same thing here. You have children having children and making it seem like that's okay. There's no bad thing happening if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So a 15-year-old girl has a child. How is she going to become a doctor?
Yeah.
How is she going to become a seamstress?
But the child that is born to the 15-year-old is
Right back in the same
as Jim
position.
said, it's either right. Either you're born into a situation where that can be taken care of and that can be responded to, and that is not, a death sentence or the beginning of a road into continued poverty and having another child herself at the age of 15 and then the next generation and so forth, or by accident of birth, you end up in a place, in a family, in a culture, in a society where, okay, well, you may have been born into a 15-year-old mother, right? But that does not necessarily, for you as the child, mean that you are, you are eternally damned, if you will. Can't ever get out of it.
It depends on how you are developed in that family. If that family says, and they're all on welfare, and they all, whatever that is, are saying, "Oh, you don't worry about it. The government will give you that. This will happen. This will happen."
Right.
That child will not go out.
But if you are the child born to a 15-year-old and dropped in the wedge of the wheel where it's poverty with AIDS and famine and war, right? Your chances are pretty slim. And if you are the child of a 15-year-old who happened to have gotten pregnant, and you're dropped in the segment of wealth, right? Then there are going to be a lot of resources available to both you as the child and to your 15-year-old mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might make a difference for you down the road and for her down the road. Okay. And so what Jim said, right, a while ago was, what did he feel when looking at that video? Was he felt blessed to have had the good fortune by the accident of birth to have been born here in this country into the family he was born into, right? And not, dropped by the stork on one of the other segments of the wheel. Right? And that's really in many ways the message here, that that the cartoon implies that the chance of being born into a situation of poverty is much greater, right, than the chance of being born into middle class or wealthy, right? And that the cartoon is saying that there is a randomness, right, to the situation one is born into. Right? That doesn't mean that has to be the end message of one's life, but where one starts is very much a kind of a random chance. And I think that we are extremely fortunate that we didn't have to, or we don't have to, overcome some of the obstacles that apparently 83% of the world's population encounter just by a mere factor of where they're born.
And yet we talk about poverty all the time in this country.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that we don't have poverty.
Well, we
talk about poverty.
We don't have developing country AIDS poverty.
Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by we talk about it all the time?
Well, according to what I know, or I think I know, poverty in this country means maybe you only have one television and somebody doesn't have a cell phone. And I'm being harsh because if you're living in poverty in this country, you're living so much better than everywhere else, or these other places that are mentioned.
Doesn't mean it's good.
Poverty in this country is better than poverty in some of these other places.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is true for some, but I'm not sure that that's true for all.
I think most.
So what somebody said to me once when talking about poverty in this country, and again, pictures that you see of the masses that are starving, maybe in certain areas, that we don't have starvation like that in this country. I mean, you do hear of the children that have to go a whole weekend without food and so forth, and that's something that you know, how do you find them? But
Right. I mean, yes, we don't have hundreds of thousands of people lying in makeshift camps as homes and starving to death. That is correct. right? But we absolutely do have in what is purportedly the richest country in the world, we have incredible numbers of children who don't get adequate nourishment day in and day out, week in and week out. And that's documented and counted, and we know about it, right? There's a reason why our government provides free and reduced lunch, and by the way, breakfast at so many schools across the country, right? Because they're not getting adequate food at home. So it's we do have poverty. It expresses itself with different images and different realities, but I think it does exist here as well. So let's transition into the ideas of tzedakah, because really the reason for sharing all of this with you is to remind ourselves that there are realities in the world that demand our attention, and the question is, how do we respond, right? And how does Judaism ask us or teach us to respond? So, so if you look in your Tzedakah philanthropy booklet number 2, right? Okay, everybody sees. Okay, all right. So there is the first text we want to look at is a text from the Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah Torah is the work written by the author or the scholar, the commentator, the Rambam, or also known as Moses Maimonides. His dates are there in that introductory paragraph, 1135 to 1204. And he is, truly one of the great authorities, codifiers of Jewish law, philosopher, teacher, also, by the way, was a physician. So he was a true Renaissance man before the Renaissance. In this codification of Jewish law in the Mishnah Torah, which he writes really to take the enormous work, which is the Talmud, Talmud being a 63 tractate, i.e. 63 volume work of the rabbinic discussion that covers everything from the first couple hundred years of the Common Era of around the 500 of the Common Era. So you've got, hundreds of years of rabbis debating across the generations. And when you kind of want to say, okay, so what is it that I'm supposed to do as a Jew, right? What does Jewish law say about this, right? Well, it's pretty hard to kind of get that. And to study the Talmud, you got to study pages of a discussion, and then you might get the answer at the end of it, or you might not. Because the answer might not be at the end. It might have been along the way. Right? So the Rambam writes this book, which is the Mishnah Torah, to basically kind of say, okay, let me give you something you can kind of go by. Here's what Jewish law says. Here's how you ought to do it. And of course, the problem is that Rambam was so impressed with his own knowledge and his wisdom that he assumed that because he wrote it down, everybody would just accept it as that's what it is. That's what the law is. So he didn't feel the need to cite his sources.
No bibliography.
No bibliography, no footnotes, right? It's just, this is what the law is. Of course, so therefore, the nice, clear, concise compendium of Jewish law that he created then created an explosion of commentary and super commentary on it, as subsequent generations of rabbis tried to go back and figure out which section of the Talmud was he referencing, where did he get this from, what did he really mean by it, and is he right or is he wrong? Okay. It's not until about 400 years later that we get the next kind of concise compendium of Jewish law called the Shulchan Aruch, the set table, which is a Sephardic work that kind of lays it all out law by law by law by law. And then, of course, because it's Sephardic, well, that's not good enough for the Ashkenazic Jews, European Jews. They have to write the Mapah, an Ashkenazic rabbi writes the tablecloth that goes over the set table to make sure that the Ashkenazic Jews know where they differ from the Sephardic Jews in this kind of enumeration of Jewish law. So
and this is all related to tzedakah.
So this is all related to all Jewish law.
Okay.
Right now, so the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah does have this wonderful text that is referred to as the ladder of tzedakah. that gives us a description of how one's supposed to approach tzedakah. All right. So everybody sees where it says text on page 2 of your booklet. All right. Somebody want to read for us? We're going from the highest form, from the best way of doing tzedakah to the lowest form. And by the way, just before we go too much further, let's just define our terms. Does everybody know what the word tzedakah means? Okay. So what's the first rule in this class? If I use a word you don't know, you got to say, "Hey, hold on a second there. What does that word mean?" Charity. Isn't it charity? Yes
Giving?
and no. Okay. All right.
A good Jewish answer.
A good Jewish answer.
Is it the same? It's the same as Dawn?
Yes and no. No, not quite.
So, okay.
Okay, so tzedakah, right, is often translated as charity or as philanthropic giving. Okay, but the word charity comes to us from the Latin. The Latin root of charity is caritas, okay, which means love or caring, right? So the Christian concept of charity is, why do you give charity? Why do you give money or goods to another person? Because you love your fellow man, woman, child, right? It's an act of love, okay? Right? As we'll find out from Maimonides' ladder, it don't always have to love them, but you still got to give, okay? Tzedakah comes from the root word tzedek, right? And tzedek means justice, okay? So tzedakah really is doing what is right, or what is just, or it is creating justice, right? Tzedakah is a Hebrew word, right? So we do tzedakah really more than we give tzedakah. And it encompasses, yes, philanthropy, yes, giving charitably, but is the motivation for why we do what we do when we talk about tzedakah is because we are trying to create a sense of justice, fairness. We are responding to injustice.
It seems to me, and that's just from a cursory reading, that we're putting giving before loving. And in my limited experience, which also brings all kinds of associations that people have about Jews,
Mm-hmm.
but in my limited experience, getting broader as I work with many churches,
Mm-hmm.
they, and I don't know if this is a Southern thing or a non-Jewish thing, but they say all you have to do is love on these families. The love is way more important than the giving. I mean, they want you to give, but their emphasis seems to me to be the reverse.
Okay, so I'm not going to answer that. Let's read the Maimonides text, and then let's come back to that conversation, okay? Okay, so somebody would read for us number 1, the highest form. Okay, go ahead, Arlene.
Okay.
Nice big voice.
Okay. The highest form is not to give recipients anything at all as a handout, but rather to lend them money, take them into a business partnership, or find work for them. For in all these cases, they will be able to support themselves and thus retain their full measure of self-respect.
Unless they're our children. No, just
That's true. But I noticed this, I was in Salt Lake City and the LDS, the Mormons, and there's a number of homeless people, and I asked and they said that they will give people work. They will find work for people to do, but they don't give any handouts, any just free stuff.
Which is
So what's the Chinese proverb that we all know that really fits this the situation? Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. Okay, right? So the idea is creating self-sufficiency, right? Okay. So the highest form of tzedakah right, is to create a situation where the individual can acquire the skills or the resources or the knowledge or the wherewithal to go forward without any need of ongoing support or assistance or tzedakah in the future.
Which sounds really great and nice, but the people that don't have the ability to do that, I think it's all of our responsibilities to help those if they're not able to help themselves.
Right. Well, we haven't. So we haven't gotten to the other levels that are on the ladder. Keep in mind that there are 7 other levels of tzedakah that are all still tzedakah.
But all kinds of research supports number one. I mean, the most
Absolutely.
successful programs are programs that are either microloans or that teach villagers how to save money and develop business. They're much more effective
Education.
at distributing goods.
It's been proven over and over.
I agree with that. I'm saying that there are people who can't help themselves.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's always going to be,
Yeah.
that's what all of this stuff was originally for, not for the people who just don't, but it was for the people who really can't get up and do anything. That's what it was for. The original concept of giving. If you can't do anything, you've got to help the person. That's all I have to say.
Well, so Maimonides is saying that the highest level of the Jewish approach to tzedakah is what you can do to help someone reach self-sufficiency. All right, let's read the second level.
To give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully and before one is asked, and to give one's gift in a way so that neither the donor nor the recipient knows each other's identity. This is fulfilling a commandment for the sake of the commandment, as opposed to any personal gain or pleasure.
So what's the essence here?
Anonymity.
Anonymity, right? Anonymity on both sides,
Which is,
right? It's very hard to achieve, right? All right. Sometimes we have people who want to give without being recognized for what they're giving and how they're helping, right? But most of the times, even those people who want anonymity in their giving know to whom they're giving and whom they're helping, right? It is much rarer to be able to tap into the resources you need for the anonymous recipient. Right? Over the years, I've been, I've been very fortunate that we have, from time to time in the congregation, had a family that faces a situation where they're in need, and I've been able to go to, one of our key people who taps the resources of some of his friends, right? Usually via an email saying, "Rabbi's got a family in need. We all need to pony up." Then nobody needs to know or wants to know who the family is in need or really much about their situation. They're happy to give. All comes anonymously. I'm able to give that money on to the family that needs it and whatever they need. And we fulfill that second level. I mean, I get to that first level of self-sufficiency, but it does respect the anonymity both of the donor or donors and the recipient.
so what about like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, St. Jude's Hospital? I mean, there's a middle person managing it. Is that, you don't directly know the person you're helping.
Well, first of all, everybody knows that they're getting their money from Bill and Melinda Gates.
Okay. Okay.
Right? I mean, right? I mean, right? Okay. I mean, that's,
Well, the kids at school don't know that for their school foundation.
Maybe they do.
Okay,
Yeah.
do they?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, the others are, Wounded Warriors, St. Jude,
Yeah.
all, Shriners, all of these that you just kind of, send a check every month, you don't know who it's going to, and they don't know who's
Correct.
giving the money to.
Right.
It's just there to, make sure that
Similar to what
those
you're
things are
doing.
Right.
Facilitating.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
that's
Right. Now, of course, one of the things that we have to know about, right? What's that online resource called? The Charity Finder.
Yeah.
Right? Is that everybody ought to know about Charity Finder. If you don't know about Charity Finder, Charity Finder analyzes the charities, the organizations that collect money and distribute money And you can find out sort of how much of the money is passed through to the recipients and to the causes they support, and how much goes to further fundraising and administration and printing and all those things.
It's usually huge,
Unfortunately, you know, some they're you know, of the charities out there, they range.
Yeah.
Right? So. Yeah.
And just to regress on Leslie's point, I'll just take a second. There's a commercial running, I saw it 3 times on CNN today, and it's an appeal for people to send money to Israel for people who don't have food. They don't say Jewish people, because I've listened to it a couple of times now. I'm thinking, are people starving in Israel? Are Jews starving in Israel?
Palestinians.
Yes,
Palestinians.
yes, but not as much as Palestinians.
Yeah.
But yes, there are Jews starving in
Check
Israel
them
too.
out, though, on that. Let's see, it's running
It's
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an 800 number, and you call.
It's the same group that says, you know, it's a Jewish organization of some sort. I don't know
Is it?
anything about it. I don't know anything
Okay,
about
I'm
it.
gonna
It's-
check it out on.
But, you know, they do the
Sure.
Passover, give $25 so they get a Passover meal. You know,
Yeah.
the Russian Jews who, you know, don't have anything that, you know. goes
Yeah.
on
I can
there.
I'll send you the link.
Okay.
if I- okay.
All right, so level 1, self-sufficiency. Level 2, anonymity. All right, level 3. And we'll go down the table. Shelley, you want to read? If you don't want to read, just pass on to the next person.
To give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully and before being asked, and to give one's gift in such a manner that although the donor knows the identity of the recipient does not know the identity of the donor.
So what are the characteristics we learn here? You know who you're giving money to.
But
Okay.
they don't.
They don't know where it's coming from. Okay. And all right, so it's a free will offering, right? You are moved, you see a situation, and you want to do something to affect it. Okay. And
You're happy about it.
you're happy about it. Okay. Right. First time we get an emotional state here. Right. Okay. So the third level is, all right, you see a need, you respond to it happily without being asked, and the recipient doesn't know who's helping. Right? Nice. Okay. Number 4.
To give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully and before one is asked, and to give one's gift in such a manner that, although the recipient of the gift knows the donor's identity, the donor does not discover who the recipient of the gift is.
So just a nuance of change here,
Yeah, very.
right?
It's a
And
gift.
the nuance is that the person who's being helped knows where the help is coming from. But the person who's helping doesn't know who's getting the help.
So how would that happen?
That could be like the bill.
Yeah,
Melinda
I
Gates
guess.
Fund. Somebody, you know,
Or St. Jude's.
kid knows that it's getting it from that
True.
fund, but
They don't know the
they don't know
particular.
that particular person.
Why is that significant? Why is this, you know, whether you do or don't know the recipient, and if you're the donor, or if you're the recipient, if you know the donor but they don't know you?
Well, you don't feel beholden to someone if you don't know from whom the gift is.
But the latter is
Mhm.
when you do know, you know other people are of a giving nature, and maybe that's an example in a lesson.
And when you give and the recipient knows it's from you, but you don't know to whom it goes, you're not giving out of favor, you're giving out of need. I mean, you're not choosing.
So in other words, like when you know who's getting the gift, you might make a decision about you're giving to this one and not to that one. And yet I understand what you're saying. And yet Rambam says that that's a higher level of giving than where the recipient knows who's giving, but you don't know who you're giving to.
The higher level is.
Higher level is that the donor doesn't know who's getting it.
Yes. Yeah.
So therefore they can't make a value judgment
Yes,
on
exactly.
you need it more than he
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
Right.
that's what
Or I favor you over him for whatever reason.
I mean. Right. I mean.
I like the color of your hair. I like the color of your
Somebody
eyes.
else, You've got 5 people lined up in front of you. everything, your life experience and what you feel and think and so on is going to, color, okay, I'll give it to you, but not to you.
Mhm.
And if you don't know, then it's just.
Doesn't United Way do that? I mean, you can specify who you want to give it to, but if you don't, the organization.
Mhm.
They have high administrative costs.
Yes, I do.
So, one of the things that comes to my mind is that we give like camp scholarships here to kids to go to camp. The recipients know that the money is coming from Brotherhood, Sisterhood, and the Temple Scholarship Fund. So they may not know the individuals, but they certainly know where their scholarship is coming from. But the people who are involved in Brotherhood, Sisterhood, or the Temple at large don't know who the recipients are. It's kept to a very, very confidential small group of people who evaluate and divvy up the scholarship money. So that's kind of an example of number 4.
But it's a higher level of giving for the donor to know who they're giving to than for the donor not to know who they're giving. Between 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between 3 and 4 is that
The donor knows.
That's a high.
right. It's higher for the donor to know who they're giving to than for the donor not to know. That's interesting.
Well, but you can read it the other way, that it's higher when you give anonymously than when you give and are named. That's when you think of it that way.
2 and 3.
Well, two gives us the ideal where neither knows the identity of the other.
But I mean so.
But it does seem to be maybe a little bit of splitting hairs here between 3 and 4. They could almost be on an equal footing that in either event. Although what you're saying is that it's still a higher value for the donor to not know the recipient. No, the donor to not be known to the recipient than for the recipient to know who's giving them.
Yeah, I always felt that when you look at all the lists that you publish in the thing and you see names and then you see anonymous, I just feel like a special little thank you for that anonymous person without recognition.
It's like the old Jewish joke, right? Mr. Schwartz pledges $10,000 anonymously.
Right. All right, number 5. Sorry, tell me your name was Jenna. You emailed into us today or yesterday, right?
Well, I was able to get back to lunch.
Right. Okay.
To give what is fitting and to do.
Welcome, by the way.
Yes.
To give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully and before being asked. That's those are short ones.
So here, there's no reference to whether it's anonymous or known. This is just the way in which one gives.
This is Salvation Army. You go, okay, here's a
Right, the Christmas
Right.
No. It's not.
No, they're asking, aren't they?
Yes.
No, they don't ask. They just sit there and ring a bell.
Still giving what's fitting, because look lower than give less on what's fitting.
Okay, you're reading ahead. That's not fair.
So what does it mean to give what is fitting?
What you can afford.
Yeah, instead of
Or what the person
Well,
needs.
judge.
Could be, yeah.
It's a judgment on your part with that. It's fitting.
Is fitting about what they need or about what you can give?
Oh,
I think it's more about what you can give in this.
It's like tithing.
Yeah.
that's also, what you can give is also relative.
That's right.
For sure. Right?
Now, I see what is.
How about the sorry, Leslie, go ahead, yeah?
I see what is fitting. It could also mean there's a need for,
Clothing
like
is-
these people that are coming to spend the night. So that puts a word.
A specific need.
Yeah, fills a specific need.
Mhm.
So whatever is being given then is what is fitting.
Right. So in other words, so if we need 14 sets of sheets, right? Though you could maybe afford to give 40 sets of sheets, right? We don't need 40 sets of sheets. We need 14, right? So what is fitting in this instance is the 14 sets of sheets, not the 40 sets of sheets. You know, if it's specific to the particular need.
That's unusual. I mean, our food drive, we look to beat it every year, but that's a great example, yeah. You know.
Well, but again, even so, like, you know, should you, so it's the annual high holiday food drive, right? Should you go to Publix and fill up 4 shopping carts and bring it here?
You should.
Or 10 shopping
You can.
carts?
If it's fitting.
Okay. Well, it's fitting. The pantry needs as much food as possible. They always will run out. You can't buy enough food to keep the pantry stocked for the entire year. So should you spend all of your tzedakah funds on that food drive?
Then you can't help the next time.
Well, that's right. So how do you decide what's fitting?
And I have overgiven to the point that, you know, then all of a sudden I'm running short.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anybody to suffer.
Right. You know, there's something wrong with that phrase, give till it hurts.
Yeah.
Right, isn't it? Right? I mean, are you supposed to impoverish yourself? Is that what it means to give till it hurts?
Is that Jerry Lewis?
I think it's every fundraiser I've ever heard, give till it hurts.
There are people who, they take about poverty so that they can give till it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm. Right, that is a blessing.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let's keep going.
I mean, you know, you could sit here, I mean, I could sit here, I know I've got money that is just sitting there that I don't know what to do with, so I could run out and hand out money.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2 months down the road, I need that,
Mm-hmm.
that money. So,
Right.
you know.
It's a very personal, determination, isn't it? Look, I've encountered individuals who have far less means than I do, making a comparative commitment that is far greater than what I will commit to do, because they believe in whatever it is that they are putting their money towards or what they're doing.
Also narrowing this to money, and that giving is, your time. I mean,
yes.
I agree. When we look at this, we should be, I think, looking in a bigger picture.
But it's kind of hints about money.
yeah.
I mean, because all that other stuff goes along with another category.
Right. Although, if you have a skill to teach someone that's going to lead them towards self-sufficiency, that's the highest level of tzedakah.
But money is not mentioned anywhere.
Yeah. It says give. Question is, what are you giving? It is money or goods
Well, yeah,
or
but
services.
Does he, in his writing, specify that it's money?
Well, in this context, it's not always money, but it is things that can be valued.
So it's not selfless service.
Right. I mean, it could be service if you're, right. In other words, it could be that you can go and do a service that someone would otherwise have to pay for.
Right.
And so therefore you are giving something of value.
Yeah.
But for Maimonides and for Jewish tradition, they're mostly talking about, if not money, then the food that we eat and the basic stuff that is our property. And when we talk about tithing, right, and we talk about leaving the corners of the field, not gleaned, right, and we talk about leaving what is forgotten, the bale of hay that you forgot to pick up on your rounds, and so you got to just leave it there because
Which is very anonymous.
yes.
Well, they know who owns the land.
Oh, well.
Well, then the recipient knows the donor, but the donor
Okay,
doesn't know who's wandering through and eating from it. So most of the tzedakah texts in our tradition are agricultural, and that is, in essence, is money.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay, number 6.
To give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully, but only after being asked.
So the differential is
One time
timing.
you're asked, and the other
Right.
is you don't ask.
right
You just-
before you're asked versus don't give until you're asked.
You recognize it.
Okay. And so that's lower down because somebody's got to prompt you, right? Basically.
Number 6 is used for the kids.
For the kids.
Yeah, children.
Right.
When they ask.
Not until they ask. He said number 6 refers to giving to your kids. Right? Not until they ask. All right, Jim, number 7.
To give less than is given, but to do so in good humor.
So either less than is needed or less than you're able to give, depending on how we interpret fitting. Right? But you're doing it cheerfully, good humor, right? So willingly. All right. All right. And the last one.
To give, but to do so with sorrow, without joy.
So this is. Oy, got to do this again.
Classic
Yeah.
temple gift.
What is it?
Classic temple giving. That's great.
The truth comes out.
So Jim is saying anytime the temple asks you to give, you're giving till it hurts. Because it hurts. Or it's again and again. Okay.
So do Jews tithe? I was just going to ask that very same question.
So that's a great question. And the answer is yes and no, right? Okay. What does our tradition teach us? Right? Absolutely, our tradition teaches us that the minimum tzedakah that one is supposed to give is tithing, is 10% of gross, by the way, not net. Okay, right? And the maximum is 20%. Right? And it's interesting that the law sets at both a minimum and a maximum, because it does say quite clearly you're not supposed to impoverish yourself. Right? So
where is this written?
where is this written? So it's written in the rabbinic texts that interpret the biblical texts. Right? And the basis of it is there's an exercise that you can do. If you go to we pull together some of the texts from Torah that talk about the various ways in which you're supposed to give. Okay, so there's the tithe, right? That's mentioned specifically in the Bible. There's the corners of the field. Okay, there's the gleanings, right? The stuff that drops along the way as you're picking. Right? There is this one that I talked about, the forgotten sheaf, the forgotten bale of hay. It's called the shchicha. And I love this law. It's you can't purposely forget something, right? So you can't say this is going to be the one I'm going to forget, right? But yet it's a positive obligation to leave the forgotten sheaf. So you have to do it. If you want to fulfill all the mitzvot, you got to forget something along the way. So it's kind of an interesting paradox of you can't actively forget it, but yet if you don't forget it, then you haven't fulfilled it. Okay. When you add up all of these different pieces and give percentages of of your harvest. Right, it actually ends up to be even more than 20%, about somewhere between 22 and 25%. If you were to fulfill all of the laws at the level of which the rabbis define and interpret the text. Right? So out of that, what the rabbis ultimately say is that we're going to set a 20% maximum, right? And the 10% is your starting point. Right? Now, having said that, right? I think that you would be hard-pressed to find a large number, a significant number in any Jewish community that give at that level, give 10% of their gross. I just think that's, and when you stop and think about it, I mean, that's a pretty high bar, and there are some people who do think about it in terms of percentages, who do think about it, say they look at their annual budget and they say, I'm going to try and do 2% or 3% or 4% of my net or my gross, and that's what I'm going to allocate to tzedakah. Talk to anybody who does a budget and lives on a budget, and any family that lives on a budget, and that it is really hard to not have that be the first thing that you start to reduce when you're trying to make those numbers meet. Right? It's really tough, and you really have to have willpower to say I'm going to figure out other ways to make these ends meet. I'm going to do without this. We're not going to spend $5,000 on the vacation. We're going to spend $4,000 on the vacation so that we can preserve that $1,000. So
unless it's the trip to Israel coming up.
Right.
Because we kind of talked about time, talent, and money, and so I've looked at tithing, have Christian friends that use this thing, time, talent, and money, or else they give 10% of their money. They're dedicated to that. So it really, if you break it down into time, talent, and money, 10%, and that all adds up to 10%. I'm just trying to see what
there are, right. So in other words, so I would say that there are many Jews who are active in Jewish community life, who give a tremendous amount of time, which is absolutely a huge value to the community. In some ways, and sometimes even more valuable than the money. Because even though we need the money to pay the bills and keep the lights on and all those kinds of things, no community can exist without people who are willing to give of their time. Right? So it's very hard to put a value on it, right? How do you value the money component and the time component and the skills that the talent that you're donating, right? So that you can feel satisfied that you have reached your tithing. Okay? But I think it's absolutely a valid way of thinking about it. We often talk about sort of if people can't don't have the means to pay for whatever it is that we want them to pay for in the temple, we are often thinking about are there ways in which we can encourage people to give of their time when they don't have the money to give. Does giving the money absolve you of needing to commit time? Right? Should there be a time commitment, a service commitment? This is a conversation we've had a number of times. And how do we start talking about not just the financial commitment you'll make to the temple, but what kind of time commitment you'll make to the temple to help us move forward, because there's a very high value to it. So accurate.
Rabbi, I'm looking at the word cheerfully.
Mm-hmm.
There's the saying, "'Tis better to give than receive." Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it really feels better to give. Selfishly, it feels better to give than to have to
receive.
Pay. Yeah. So is that cheerfully? Is that what that means?
I think cheerfully is it's the whether you're grumbling to yourself about having to write that check or give that money or punch that Chad in the Kol Nidre appeal, right? It's whether it's like, really, like you're really gonna stand there until I punch a Chad and put it in the basket. So I'm kind of feeling obligated, and I don't really want to do this, and this is not my way of doing it, and I'm not really comfortable doing it. But you know what? He's standing there, he's still standing there, and he's still standing there 30 seconds later, and I better do this or else he's not going to go. We're going to move on, right? So that's I think the not cheerfully, right? The cheerfully is the person who punched out their Chad, long before they walked in the door, and maybe even dropped it in the usher's basket before the appeal was even made, right? Because they're quite happy to do it. They know what's going to be done. They don't need to wait for to be motivated by the speaker. And this is what they happily do. That's cheerfully.
But it doesn't come up till number 5.
Well, no, it comes up number 2.
Oh, does it?
Give what is fitting and to do so cheerfully and before one is asked.
See,
gotcha.
number one, you don't have to be cheerful. You just hire the guy and get him some work and get him out and doing his stuff.
A few years ago, you gave, it was like during the lunchtime thing that you did, you had a book, something called Midrash.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It had a little statement in it, I can't remember exactly, and I've been madly searching for the book because it's so beautiful the way they stated about giving, and it's not like, oh, it's better to give than receive. It's stated in such a beautiful way about giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have it here in my back. I do have it up in my office. I think there's also a volume in the library, so we can read it.
I'm sorry. You can email us.
Well, the Talmud one is Swimming in the Sea of Talmud. That doesn't really help you. But the Midrash one is like meaning in Midrash, something like that. I think it is an M word. Okay. Mud of Midrash. No. One of the things about the Jewish laws of giving tzedakah is that even the recipient of tzedakah is obligated to give.
Where is that?
Even the recipient is obligated to give.
Well, that's partially what that's saying by
Right.
receiving.
Now, this is saying even a penny, even if it's a penny, even if it is a minimal amount, the person who receives tzedakah and needs tzedakah is obligated to give even a small amount. Why?
That build houses and require the recipient to work on the house. Well, because then it gives more meaning to your getting when you also give.
Right, but the working on your own house is a way of sort of of encouraging you to have an investment in what it is that you're receiving.
It's sort of the
right. But this would be obligating you to work on somebody else's house.
Well, I think that's actually what the program is.
Al and I we did this thing probably 15 years ago. We called it Happy, help another person plus yourself. And I think a housekeeper or somebody came to us and said, can I borrow money for a car? And we said, we'll give you the money for the car, repair, whatever it was. But you have to use that car to help someone else. And then that person has to tell you what they're going to do. And it was the pay it forward.
The pay it forward
yeah,
concept,
which is, there's an expectation that there's a lesson in receiving. I think that's.
So I think that that where the Jewish law of that the recipient has to give even a minimal amount has to do with some of the comments that some of you were making about what does it feel like to be dependent on the gifts of others, on tzedakah, right? And what does it feel like to be able to be a donor, right? There is a concern for human dignity, okay? And there is a concern in Jewish practices that we give in a way to try and preserve as best we can the dignity of the recipient. Right? I mean, I think that's really what the anonymity is about, right? It's about protecting dignity. It's about protecting a person from embarrassment, right? But regardless of how anonymous and protected you are, right? You know in your heart of hearts, if you are dependent upon the gifts of others, the tzedakah, in order for you to eat, clothe, take care of your family, whatever it happens to be. Right? But our tradition also recognizes that there is a huge boost to one's sense of dignity and self-worth and purpose when you are able to give, because you know you're doing something for someone else. So what I think where this kind of law and practice comes from is a way of really lifting up the person who is receiving and dependent upon tzedakah by ensuring that they feel kind of a sense of dignity that though they are dependent upon the tzedakah they're getting, they also are able to do something that's going to help someone else even if it's in the smallest of ways. So it's a really important kind of part of our tradition. Another part of our tzedakah tradition is the tzedakah box itself. It used to be both, and this goes back to temple times. The temple in Jerusalem, that you were supposed to put into the tzedakah box when you had to put in, right? And you were permitted to take out of the tzedakah box when you needed to take out. And nobody knew how much anybody was putting in or how much anybody was taking out. And that's kind of like the ideal way, right? Not so practical anymore, right? Because, and unfortunately, we are a society and a community where people are suspicious and people are judgmental. And by the way, people will take out of the tzedakah box even if they don't need it, right? So we no longer leave it unlocked and for people to put in and take out. But what a wonderful ideal that is, that it can happen that way. So the next set of texts and materials take us into the kind of why do we give? What are both the obligations and the opportunities? What are the assumptions and that go along with all this? I want to show you, hopefully, another video brief. It's up there on the screen.
There it is.
Why do you give charity?
So other people can be taken care of?
Most of the time because I feel sorry. Because I can.
Because in my heart I hope that somebody gives me charity when I need it.
It is better to give than to receive.
So that other people can experience the same good things in life as we do.
Make me feel good inside.
I help people, they're going to help me.
When do I give charity?
What is that?
Because I hate to see a lot of abuse in the world and pain and suffering. So I give a lot of money to charities.
There's no way to give and not get back.
Whatever I give, God gives me 10 times more.
It's not to get it back. It's because you have to put it into the system kind of thing.
The Hebrew word tzedakah, which we generally translate as charity, really means justice.
I like to give to people that are less fortunate than myself. I've been very lucky in life.
Charity implies that you're being magnanimous, that you're doing something beyond the letter of the law.
I think that because we're so blessed that we need to share that abundance with other people.
That's how you get your blessing, receive your blessing.
Tzedakah means it's only right. When God gives us more than we need for ourselves, He is literally telling us to deliver some of that money to the person for whom it was intended, and it's not us.
It's good to help each other, because if you don't have each other, then you don't have anything at all.
I was homeless myself, and I give charity because I asked so much, so I'm happy to give.
God created a world in which people are not equal, which gives us each a need and a dependence on someone else.
There's no point if you just hog all the stuff you can and then die. What have you accomplished?
The wealthy man needs the opportunity to be good and do good with his wealth. The poor man needs the support and the food to keep himself alive. And so people come together who might not otherwise come together out of a need.
You can't help out others, then what are you here for?
And people who need people, you know, are the luckiest people.
Why'd you make so much pain and suffering in this world?
Why 9/11?
When will I get married?
When do we get to figure it out?
A whole lot bigger questions. So I need you to get up. You need to get up. Yeah. All right. This is values clarification. Right? All right. Make your own choices. Don't feel like you need to be influenced by others, but you can be influenced by others. All right. But you got kind of going to go one side or the other side. All right. Would you rather, right, give to an organization that fights poverty on this side, or to an organization that protects the environment on this side? Go.
Oh.
An organization that fights poverty on this side, an organization that protects the environment on this side. You can't be in the middle, you got to choose one. There's no right, there's no wrong.
Hey.
Okay, so we want to speak up for the trees, as the Lorax would say.
You know, you gotta have a place to, you have to have an earth in order to help.
It is the larger
I mean,
picture.
yeah.
Okay, all right, so bigger picture, context, yeah.
I don't think there's any point in fighting poverty if we eventually have to live on a sliver of Mars.
Okay, all right, okay. And anybody over here on the poverty side is why it was more important to you than the environment?
Yes, because part of fighting poverty, we have to take care of the environment and develop the earth.
Okay.
Good one, Shelley.
Well, but that's also part of the environment. For example, you don't want people to have to use coal to cook because of the pollution that it creates. So you have to provide them with another means of cooking, which also helps fight their poverty.
Okay.
Poverty is a more immediate need. It needs to be handled. We've been working on the earth, polluting it for a long time. We can take it. Not that it's right, but I feel that to help people is the more immediate.
Okay, anybody want to change sides?
Well,
You're happy with where you are?
And that it's, you know, it's, if you do one thing, you do the other as well, because it's connected.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys are trying to straddle over the chasm here at the table. All right. Would you rather give to an organization that helps homeless people in your city over here, or an organization that helps homeless people in Israel over here? Homeless people in your city over here, or homeless people in Israel over here?
I just converted, so I don't care.
You certainly do count.
Recuse myself.
Recuse yourself. Why local?
Because that's where we live.
Okay.
It's always been my philosophy that I feel I can control my environment or impact it more directly than I can something that's not.
Right.
Yeah, you can make more of a difference.
Act locally, think globally. Right? Okay. All right. All right. Okay. All right. That's it. No, it's all right. It's great. It's very hard to stand as a single voice. Right? Why Israel rather than one's own local city?
I feel pulled.
Mhm.
It's, and like too with the environment, I donate to plant trees in Israel.
Mm-hmm. So that's that pull of the Jewish homeland.
And Israel is the
stronghold on the future of Judaism.
Right.
But if you change that question, instead of Israel, I don't know, sub-Saharan Africa, would the decision-making be different?
Good question. Maybe.
What if you change the question to generic, don't know their identity, local homeless people versus local Jewish homeless? How many people would be over on that side?
Well,
If you knew for sure that you could help Jewish homeless as opposed to any homeless,
I would.
you'd be there. You'd be there.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't. Okay. All right. Here you go. Next one. Would you rather give to an organization that sends doctors to clinics in villages in India to perform surgery and train health workers? Okay. Or a local clinic that provides medical care to low-income residents of your city? An organization that sends doctors to clinics in villages in India to perform surgery and train health workers. A local clinic provides medical care to low-income residents of our city, your city.
I like the train. I have to say, I'm over here, but I like the train.
Okay. All right.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, they're all tough.
Yeah.
Why?
Because we want to do both.
Yeah. Well, why are you over here?
Well,
you
said we can't sit in the
Can't sit in the middle. It's the local piece.
You don't, even with, Doctors with No Borders, all of those things that, is in the news right now. It's still something that, it's a wonderful thing that they're doing, but you have no control over any of that. Here, you have some control. I don't know what, but at least you can
go and look and see what the clinic's doing
exactly.
and see whether they're spending your money well and all that.
What's going on here? Why is this not working?
Yeah.
Okay,
but yes.
Locally, I mean, what I've seen is there are many opportunities for people to ask for help and receive it and help themselves, back to your early point. And in India, these people don't have much greater
And we are a rich country and we should be taking
much
care of.
greater need in India. Well, I don't think the government should. I mean, I think we're talking charity.
Well, we're the government.
True, but
So for you, it's a personal, where you're putting your personal resources in part versus where you think society, government, the whole, the bigger picture should be taking care of the local clinics.
Yeah, but I think I kind of agree. There's, I mean, for me, it's, if you're poor and you live locally, you go to an emergency room and they have to take you.
And there is an emergency room.
Yes,
Right.
and
Yes.
there isn't.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Would you rather give to your local public library, which runs an after-school program that helps low-income elementary school students improve their reading and writing skills? Did you catch all that? Or your synagogue scholarship fund that helps Jewish students in our community go to Hebrew school or to day school or to the Jewish summer camps? Okay. Library, public library, after school program helps low-income elementary school students improve reading and writing. Temple scholarship fund that sends kids to Hebrew school, to Jewish day schools, to Jewish summer camps.
But I have.
well, speak your truth.
Okay. Who wants to speak up?
Well, I in the last couple of days decided to withdraw all funding to libraries when I discovered that in Florida, if you live in a city that has no public library and you want to use the one in the city nearest to you, you must pay a fee of $15. So if you live in Pasadena and you're poor and you don't have enough money to feed your kids and you want to listen to everybody who's saying how important reading is and you want to go to the St. Pete Beach Library, you got to cough up $15.
No. And aren't the libraries already government funded? Don't we pay for the
No,
library?
what the issue was, because Marjorie, and this was my issue, is what she's talking about. The city of South Pasadena decided not to tax their residents.
The government.
The city,
Yeah,
the
right.
city, this particular city, and not speaking for all of Florida, not speaking for anything other than, city of South Pasadena said they are not going to tax their residents for library. If they do want to have use of well, everybody can go into a library, go to that program, but to take out books from a library and be a member of a library, you would have to pay. It's a pay-as-you-go thing. You pay $15.
Each visit or a one-time
No,
fee?
for a library.
Once a year fee.
But, excuse me, if you go to the city of South Pasadena and say you absolutely don't have the money, it's been my understanding that they will pay that for you.
Yeah, that I don't know, and that's great if they would do that. So that's what this whole library issue
Okay.
came up.
Okay.
I never knew that.
All right.
Well, since this is all hypothetical, I'll still stay here and hope that they're going to give
Well,
kids some
given-
benefits.
So okay, so there could be Jewish kids coming to the reading and writing programs.
This,
Okay.
yeah, this program impacts more children
Mm-hmm.
and provides kind of a basic level of service
Mhm.
or standard that I believe every child should have.
Mhm.
So I think this is more important than, not that that's not noble, it is noble, but it's more specific.
No, it's not.
But would anybody want to argue that if we don't give to the scholarship funds for day schools and Jewish summer camps and religious schools, that who's going to?
And it's the future of the Jewish community. These kids are.
And they're the ones who are going to give Tzedakah next time.
And again, we already pay for the library.
Volunteer to teach them.
Yeah,
volunteers.
Volunteers, right?
But also, I don't know, I think I belong to a Jewish book club in Mexico, and I think they should read books that are either written by somebody Jewish or about Jews or whatever. But, well, that's not necessarily the universal opinion, and I think I feel that way because I consider us under threat. I mean, I don't think that Jewish communities are doing particularly well right now in the sense that I mean.
So in Tzedakah, so one of the tensions that we've talked about so far are local versus global, right? Jewish versus not Jewish, right? How acute the need is that you perceive versus versus maybe the need isn't as acute. How about, let's do one more. Okay. Would you rather give to your cousin who is participating in a walkathon to raise money for cancer research, or an organization that runs a camp for children with cancer?
For children of what?
With cancer. Your cousin who's in a walkathon to raise money for cancer research, the organization that runs a camp for children with cancer.
A walkathon was raising money for what?
Cancer research.
Both of them are cancer. One is for kids, the other is,
Your cousin is.
the one that we're doing is the one that's.
Yeah, Jim is straddling.
That's very true. I'm gonna go see.
What convinced you? Oh.
Well, I mean, these people that are doing the walk are collecting money for the research.
Uh-huh.
You know.
But it's actually what I do. I mean, my goddaughter does the walk, and I donate to her. I don't donate to Sloan Kettering, where I used to donate instead of.
Right. So what's the key issue?
I'd rather help the children now.
Uh-huh.
Not better quality of life.
Okay, so for you, it's the people who are suffering in the immediate sense, right? These are children with cancer versus the future being the research that might provide cures or prevention down the road.
And there's a cousin.
Well, no, but Amanda was talking about the immediate people dealing with cancer versus the future benefits of research, right? But you mentioned the cousin, right? So that's the family versus the amorphous organization or institution.
And also, I think you can give $100 and I even forget what we're here for. What are we doing here?
Camp, a camp for kids.